Hello, I'm Jamie.
Hello, I'm Mark, and it's time for another episode of Through the Garden Gate.
Hi, Jamie. What are you eating?
What are they?
I don't know. Peas.
Oh, nearly.
Beans.
Yay! You know, George. Well done. Well done. Oh, I love them.
Jamie, you know how Daddy mentioned the chicks at my school?
Sorry, say again?
You know when he mentioned the chicks at my school?
Yeah.
They're due to hatch tomorrow.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see them. Do you think you'd be able to get a photo?
Well, they're on a live stream on Class Dojo right now.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe Daddy can share the link. Or maybe not.
I'll be able to share a picture once they're hatched, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't share that link, Mark.
No.
You might make it
We don't want
crash.
issues like last week.
Well, what happened last week?
You know, it's all good. I'll tell you later.
Wait, you take me later. Tell me later about
Tell you
what?
tomorrow.
Tell you tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's been a lovely day.
I know, gorgeous, warm, sunny day.
I've been hot
So
and
warm.
Very hot.
What have you done today, George?
yeah. Yeah, he's literally too much of a wolf.
For
So I'll
what?
go under that. He went. Mom's been asking him to go under for 2 days, but he's not going under it.
What?
Dad, you went under it, but not properly.
Maybe
Mark, you're letting us down.
Do you think you
today.
should?
You're not turning it on now, I'll get soaked.
We expect to see that tomorrow.
Dad, you're doing a live stream.
Doing it live.
We'll do it. We'll just put it on Instagram.
Okay, I'll put it on Instagram.
Yeah,
Deal.
we'll wait to see that, George.
Deal.
Good.
So, other hand.
Okay.
It's a deal. Right, off you go to bath.
All right.
Say
See you,
night.
mate.
See you later, Jamie.
Ta-da.
I go down to my usual home.
So I guess when you connect that to a hose pipe, that squirts water everywhere.
Yeah. It took too long to set that up as well. It should have been like a 5-minute job, and it was like an hour and 20 minutes.
Cool. Literally about, what time was it? About 6 minutes ago, I sat down here and the sun was blaring in me. And that's how much it's moved. You just caught the trees and it's perfect now.
Going down.
Just enough. Still lovely and warm. What temperature is it now? 24 still.
It's been humid. More than sunny.
Humid. But people are moaning about it. We've had two days of sunshine and people are moaning already.
People like moaning.
I know.
It's
But
raining
how long have we been moaning about rain and cold? And all of a sudden,
2 days of sunshine, it's like, for God's sakes,
stop it.
why is it so sunny? I'm melting.
But it's like I always say, because Teresa works with a lot of farmers. She's probably got, I don't know, 7 or 8 farmers on her books as an accountant. And they always moan, it's too wet, it's too cold, and then it's too hot, it's too dry. You think, oh my God, what do you want? You want 20 degrees and then about 20 mil of water every 2 nights. That's it. That would be... That would be ideal, but then there would be no price for everything. It'd be so cheap. If everything grew so well, everything would be so cheap.
Well, the weeds would love it, so you'd end up with weeds everywhere.
Exactly, yeah. So they have to use more chemicals, so then that would put the prices right back up again. How's your week been at work with old Christopher?
Good.
Yeah? I see you chomping on ice creams today. That was nice.
See?
Cool. Oh.
Looked after.
Who brought them over? The boss?
The boss's daughter.
Wow.
Who's no longer at school because she's finished her GCSEs. So.
Oh, yeah. Hiya, Joe.
earning her money
Yeah.
by bringing us a drink, an ice cream.
I've got no drink. I've got nothing. I just came straight outside. I forgot my mug again. My mug's inside. Terrible.
Too
I'm
warm tea anyway.
I'm useless. Useless. Yeah, I can't have no hot tea in there. Too hot. Too hot. Do you want to just talk about a little blue palette for a minute?
Yeah.
What the hell has gone on there?
People don't like people abusing blue pallets, apparently. Apparently there's some guy called El Chepo or something that's in charge of all the blue pallets. And if you chop up his blue pallet, he'll come and get you.
I do know the blue ones are a special one.
I do now.
Yeah. I knew that the blue. I didn't realise there was somebody in charge of every blue pallet around the world.
Some of the comments are hilarious. Like, you stole that from a grocery store. Like, no.
What? So if anybody doesn't know, Mark, when did you do that? Last week, the reel?
It's probably last Friday, possibly.
Yeah, so not even a week ago. You done a reel about making a planter out of a blue pallet. Lovely planter.
Not necessarily a blue pallet, out of a pallet.
But you've done it out of a blue pallet.
I've done it out of another one as well, so it's the second one that I made that I filmed.
Okay, yeah. But your reel has absolutely gone viral, and that's the first time I've heard lots of people say, "Oh, viral," but this has gone viral. I've been watching your followers go up and up and up and up and up. It's ridiculous.
So I had a reel go viral probably.
That was the Hebe,
just
wasn't
over
it?
a year ago.
The
which
Hebe
was me digging out the Hebe.
Yeah.
And that got 2.6 million views, which I thought was, incredible. I'd never matched that, never expected it or anything like that.
No.
And then, literally last Friday, it started absolutely throwing it down. So I thought, right, I'm going to get this planter done so I can get the tomatoes in. And, just really no planning, no, huge amount going into it, and just literally recorded it, bunged it on, and it's just gone mental. And
you've got about, what you're now, 29,000, and you was on 12,000?
I was on 13,600, and I'm nearly at 30,000 followers.
Ridiculous.
And that reel has had over 6 million views and over 125,000 likes.
Good God.
And thousands of reshares. I've had a few celebrity followers.
Oh.
And yeah, just absolute chaos.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Every time I look at my phone, there's just like 100 hearts, 100 followers, and it's just chaos. Like, I can't keep up with it.
Absolutely mental. There's a couple of, what's that? Oh, to the lifeboat said it's 2:35 a.m. Oh yeah. In Western Australia, it's -4 degrees. Oh my goodness.
Is that in? Oh, that's wow. That's -4.
Wow. I didn't even know Australia ever saw those kind of.
I guess it's their winter now, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be, yeah.
So yeah, hi to any new followers that are watching.
Yeah.
This is Garden Gate. This is our podcast.
This is it. Every Tuesday night or every Wednesday morning at 2:30. We'll be here.
Depending on what time zone it is.
Brilliant.
Chatting, and then we get a fabulous guest in to talk.
We have got a fabulous guest, and I'm really excited about this guest today, our guest. Mainly because I haven't really got much of a clue about permaculture.
No.
I hear bits and bobs, but I don't really know much about it. So I hope she will be able to explain a lot to us. Let's get her in, Mark, because I'm desperate to hear what she's got to say. So our guest tonight is...
Tonight's guest is a food grower, a busy parent,
Mhm.
a permaculture expert, trying to live as eco-friendly as possible, as well as being on a budget. They run their own food garden design courses. Let's get her in. It's Emmy at Emmy.
Emmy, I'm with you till 8 then watching the game. Oh, Joe, you can just record the game and you can watch it later.
Not worth watching.
No,
After the
we're
last
through
two,
anyway.
watch us.
We're through anyway.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? I've got headphones on.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay,
See
good.
you.
I've never done a live like this before, so it's very exciting.
No, brilliant. I'm just picking broad beans. My broad beans are right next to me. I keep just nipping.
I'm the same. I never make it to the kitchen.
I know.
They just make
Lovely.
it into my mouth.
They're amazing, aren't they? Don't let them get too big, because if they get really big, that's when they get all tough and horrible, don't they?
Yeah, very true.
But I just noticed, look at the furry jackets inside the broad bean pods are amazing.
Yeah,
They're like a
did
moleskin.
Did you not sing at school that song that was like cauliflower's fluffy and cabbage is green?
Nope.
It's like the last line of it is like raw beans are sleeping in a blankety bed.
No, I've never ever heard that. Yeah, it's really velvety. It's like a moleskin. It's brilliant. Lovely. Enough about broad beans. Been a long time since I've picked broad beans. How are you, Emmy?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a bit nervous, I'll be honest.
Never. So it's only me and Mark. Nobody else.
Well, I am a viral sensation.
The followers Mark now has apparently.
I know, yeah, ridiculous.
I won't let it get to me.
What's your reach, Mark, today?
3.7 million.
I had a reel go viral like a few months ago, and it was a reel I made a mistake on as well. Like I can't believe it went viral, and it was the same thing. I like woke up one morning and I was like, oh my good God, and like all these people getting very angry about gardening. That was the thing I couldn't get over. Like all these comments people leave you and they get angry. She's planted the mint in the ground. Burn her at the stake.
What does it matter?
Oh,
That really gets on my wick when people start saying, "Don't do that, don't do that."
I can't get over it because I just think that we're just gardening, like, and we're just gonna make loads of mistakes, and we're gonna do stuff, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and like some things go mad for some people, and sometimes they don't, and like, why do you care? Just go on.
Yeah, if you're not bothered.
Exactly.
Scroll through.
Just go on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, does it? Oh, it's the age-old thing, like, oh, you haven't done that right. Well, I've got broad beans, so in my book, I've done it right.
Exactly. Like, I can't imagine looking at someone's social media and being like, I care enough to take some time out of my day to be like, oh, I'm so angry about this. Blue pallets, you're terrible.
I'm going to find a red one and do a red one and see what they say.
Oh, red
I think
ones are bad as well.
my favorite comment I've had so far was when someone wrote, like, as if I wouldn't see it, they wrote, this is the problem with influencers is they've never really gardened before and they just come on here and they say anything. And I was like, oh, thank you. You call me an influencer.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Nice comment.
I'll take that. Oh dear. Oh, it is mental, isn't it? It is mental.
It's just a weird thing. It's like sort of unimportant, this social media thing. Not unimportant because it's good to reach people, but it's not, not your life.
No, exactly. It's another life. I always think it's your second life, isn't it? To me, it is. It is the second life.
Hidden life. No one knows.
Just 3.7 million people know right now.
That would be cool if we got 3.75 million views tonight, Mark.
I don't think so.
No. Right. Tell us a bit about yourself, Emmy.
Oh, long story. I
We've got an hour.
I left England when I was like 21, and I moved to Thailand. And I was working in fashion and then I accidentally, I didn't mean to, and then my life sort of got turned upside down, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had a friend, Barbara, shout out to Barbara, and she worked for the WHO at the time, and she was an epidemiologist. And she said to me, "What are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "I don't know, Barbara. Why are you stressing me out?" And she was like, "Think about something when you were back at university that really struck your interest." And I studied criminology and social
Wow.
policy, so I wasn't really thinking about it. But I remembered that there was this thing where there was a course about food policy, and it had said that food poverty was not having enough food. It was a lack of education around food. So even if you had all the food in the world on the plate in front of you, you wouldn't know what to do with it.
Right.
And I remember thinking that when like a little bee gets in your bonnet and you're like, and you start to notice it more and more. She was like, just keep tugging that thread and see where it goes. And so at the time I was living in Thailand and I didn't really know what to do with myself. I ended up meeting someone who lived in Arizona. So he was like, well, I know a permaculture farm in Arizona. And ironically, I mean the driest place in the world. And I was like, I don't know what permaculture means. And I can remember that conversation so clearly. So I remember it was like, oh, I don't know what permaculture means. And it was like a stinking whirlpool of like, suddenly I just got sucked into this idea of system design. I think I've always been a person who's interested in the way that bigger picture things work and how people are so obsessed with the details or one process that they forget to see the bigger picture. And permaculture is very, very much focused on that system design. So I ended up going to Arizona and working like in a urban farm there for a while, and then don't mind that sound. That's my excellent gardening neighbour gardening next door. um, yeah, I went to Arizona. We worked on like a micro farm for a while, and then ended up in Guatemala, um, working for like a local guy who was doing a veggie garden there, and then it's a bit chaotic from there. Really. I moved all around Central America and California, doing all kinds of gardens. People would call me and to come to their place and do like a lot of people had hostels and they wanted like restaurant, farm to table restaurants.
Yeah.
But of course, it was like the jungle, right? So the jungle is a very different ball game, especially if they're trying to feed Western people, because you can't really grow Western food there because the bugs are really voracious. So it was like an interesting journey of figuring out how to change people's diets, how to swap things out, how to learn all that stuff. And then I ended up back in Thailand for a while, and then back here. And when I came back here, I started to grow English gardens, and it failed terribly for me for a long time because it was a very different thing, and I didn't know what I was doing, and slugs ate everything.
Oh,
And,
bloody hell, yeah. We'll talk about slugs later, shall we?
yeah, and that's a standard. But like and so like now I've been back here for a couple of years. I was going back and forth between England and Bangkok, so I've done English gardens now for about 3 or 4 years, and it's been a bit of a journey of understanding that very thing, and that's where permaculture flourishes, is because permaculture is less of a way of growing food and more of a design toolbox that teaches you to look at how to look at your environment, what things you need to look at, how to read that environment, and how to work out what you need to do from the thing that's in front of you. So I just recently moved to this new house and had to start this garden from scratch. And that's been, like a whole new reading of a different place and a new understanding of what I need to do here. So it's been fun.
Wow.
What journey?
Exactly. Yeah. That last couple of minutes you talking has just gone.
Yeah. Sometimes I just moved to this town. So people often be like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, okay,
Everywhere.
Feral.
Yeah.
The jungle. What do you want from me?
The jungle, the desert.
Yeah, the mountains. I've been very lucky. And what people don't realize, when you start doing things like that, you meet people and they take you just all over places. Like I ended up in California because I'd met a girl in Bangkok, and I was just visiting California, and she called me and she was like, what are you doing in my house? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I just bought an old ghost town. Let's renovate it together and make it like a sustainable place. So it's called Polga Town. You should look it up. It's amazing. But like things like that happen constantly when you're out on the road and you get to meet people when you're young enough to just do whatever you want.
See where the
I've
journey
got a child now, so life is different.
Yeah. Back down to earth with a bump.
Yes, exactly. Now we just garden this garden.
Can we see this garden?
Yeah, you can. It's a bit of a free pass. How do I? Oh, okay. So I've been very lucky. So I moved into a cottage. I moved to the Midlands. Live in Stamford. I don't know if you know it.
Stamford.
It's in
Yes. Not far from.
yeah.
Well, not far from both of us, Mark. Really.
sort of in the
Oh, really? It's absolutely beautiful. It's like a toy town, right? And I was looking for a place, and all I could find was like, kind of regular 3-bedroom places. And then one day this cottage came up, and the back garden is stones, and the front garden is soil. So I'll show you the back garden first. That's where I am, but you have to ignore my son's additions to the garden. So I'll go from the top. So it's stones. So I knew I couldn't really take it up. I couldn't do much with it. It's sort of problematic because whoever put the stones in didn't really think about what was existing. So, for example, there's a massive hazelnut tree here, and so of course it constantly hits on top of the like mypex they put under the stones. No one ever really leveled it out, so the stones just rolled down. But I started to put in like a fruit forest. So here is like it's like an ornamental currant tree, but you can eat them. You just don't, 'cause they've got loads of berries in. And then down here, I try and have pots with like all different things in. So this has got like a raspberry, and there's a tomato, and then there's like a little cucumber that I'm trying to grow. But then I always put like a fruit in. So a strawberry, there's broad bean seeds I just planted, and some oregano. So each of those will do this. This is a bonsai tree that somebody gave me that his wife made like 50 years ago. And I need to trim it, but I was very lucky. He gave me 2. He gave me that and this one here, which is a Japanese maple, and it's like 50 years old as well. But as you can see, like I try and grow like pots of so this like Brussels and celery and lettuce, and then here is like more raspberries and kale, and then some sort of flowers. I mean, I don't know anything about flowers. I just put them in and see what goes on. Like chives for pest control. So I try and like keep like a nitrogen fixer, like a bean, some sort of leafy plant, a fruit, and then some sort of pest control plant in every pot. This is dahlias coming up, and then I just planted some radishes in there as well because there was some space. And then over here, I put in a peach tree, which I carried home to the market, and I nearly knocked out every single sign on the way home. And it's only got, look, it's a new one, so it's got one tiny little baby peach.
Oh, I love a peach tree. My peach tree's 3 this year, and I've left everything on it this year. The first year I left 5 on.
Yeah.
I took everything off but for 5. Last year I left about 20, but I've left everything, and there's about 50 on
they get
this year.
quite a lot over time. It's the first time I've had a peach.
Well, it would have last year. It would have had probably 60 or 70, but I took them off. I didn't want to, give it too much strain. I don't because it was still young.
Okay.
But this year I've left it. So the 3rd year in the ground, I've left it to see how it goes. So hopefully we get 40 or 50.
I've never really grown fruit trees like this, so I didn't really know that's the kind of protocol that you do. I just grow it and see what happens.
Exactly.
This one down here is a little cherry tree that my friend gave me, and it's like a tiny new little baby. And I just popped a tomato in there, and then these are lentils just out the cupboard. I just put in there for nitrogen. They're like really good nitrogen fixers, and they grow like wild. I just buy them from the shop, organic ones, just chuck them in. Over here we've got red currant, and then like mint and radishes and sage in there. There's like sorrel and tomatoes, and there's a blueberry and some celery in this one. And then over here I think is a gooseberry and tomato, radishes, another celery and some lettuce. So the back garden, and then there's like a pond here, and there's some things that already existed. So this is a sambuca elderberry.
Oh, Joe will like that.
Yeah. Then there's another. I thought this was an elderberry, but now I'm not sure. Look how red the berries are. I don't know what that is. It looks like an elderberry though, but I don't know. Never seen like that. And this is a cherry laurel. So when I moved in last year, it was like the last of the crop, and I made some sort of like syrup from it, from all of the berries, and they were quite good. I mean, I didn't die, so I presume that was an elderberry cherry. I will take you next door as well. I'm very lucky because my next door neighbour is an Airbnb, and he was like, I complained to him when I first moved in that I couldn't grow much in his front garden. Say hello to my next door neighbour, Irene. Irene, say hello.
Hello, mate. So Joe just said, "Is it maybe it's a rowan tree? Is that the one? Is that the one with the red
Not
berries
a
on?"
rowan. No, rowan berries are bigger, and it's a different type of leaf,
Right.
but they're much bigger. They're like they look like elderberries. They're just very, very red. Um, Irene has been growing on the same plot for 53 years.
Wow.
Maybe she'll let us make in there because I got them amazing. So this guy, I was like, you've got this big tree. I can't grow anything in the front garden that needs a lot of sun. And he was like, we'll have the back garden. So I put in raised and sunken beds like this. And this is a very permaculture technique, right? Because you're growing on the raised beds, you're growing things that are drought hardy. And in the center, you mulch heavy. And so you do this in the autumn, and the rain will come under here. And this is really moist underneath. And you grow things down there that need a lot of water. And it works really, really well. It's like one of the easiest techniques for rainwater harvesting. And then in here, I try and mix as many crops together as possible. So, you know, courgettes, Brussels, cauliflowers, and then at the back is all tomatoes and beans because I'll do like a kind of cage tunnel across the back as they grow.
Yeah.
And I put all the onions in the autumn. He has already a weird like flat fig tree. I've never seen one like it before, but it crawls on the ground. And then there's a plum over there and a gooseberry. So it's already quite a well-established garden. And then over in the corner, I get the most sun. I put this is like the Three Sisters Guild. So it's corn and beans and squash all together. I will take you 1 second. I'm going to turn the camera off. I'll run you through to my front garden because what you see on social media is not my back garden; it's my front garden.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I grow most things that don't need so much sun. So when it came, like I was saying to you, like permaculture design, and I had to design based on what was accessible to me. So when I moved in, like I had no choice. I couldn't move the tree from next door. I couldn't, like I couldn't, you know, cut down the tree that's in my garden because it's a rental property. So I had to think about how I could work with what I already had.
Yeah.
And so in this garden, I knew I could really only grow sort of English sort of vegetables, basically, as opposed to Mediterranean veg. So I have put in a few.
I recognise this bit.
Yeah, this is the bit you see on social. So again, this is raised and sunken beds, but in like a more intense version, deeper beds. Funnily enough, my postman came the other day, and he's African, and he said to me, "You know, when you moved in, I thought you were an African lady because this is an African way of growing food."
Oh,
And I was like,
really?
yeah, most permaculture techniques come from indigenous ways of growing. Bill Mollison travelled all over the world to find out how indigenous people were growing to adapt to their environment. That's like the major thing about it. So here I'm growing like this lettuce is out of control. But I have like, I try and mix together. So you'll see like lemon balm. The lemon balm is wild, but it's really good pest control. Same with these irises. And then in between there'll be like one carrot, broad beans, tomatoes. Then down the bottom, I've got these very, very sad Brussels that I
I've
obliterated the
got
other
some
day.
exactly the same.
Obliterated. I was so sad. I've got these strawberries I actually nicked from the park. They were just spilling over onto the pavement, and I was like, I'm going to take some of these and put them in my garden. So I'm trying to run in the middle, like there's some leeks growing in here, and there's like onions and shallots growing in the wetter parts with the Brussels and all the different brassicas. And then on the top side, you've got like more beans and tomatoes and more kind of Mediterranean vegetables. Got some beans at the back there and some raspberries. And then you'll see I try and put like herbs in between. So there's some oregano here And then if you come over this side, I haven't finished planting this side, but if you come over here, there's like sage on the edges. I try and plant the herbs like on the edges, herbs and flowers along the edges of the bank, and then I plant the main crops in the middle. But yeah, my poppies are going wild. I've never grown flowers, and they seem to be the only flowers I'm able to grow. Yeah, that's basically it. And I try and mix together as much as I can. I'm still planting here, but we've got some like chives coming up. These I think are Brussels. To be honest, I don't label them, so I'm just like, that's a brassica. It'll be something. It'll be like a cabbage or a broccoli or something. Right? I just think I'm gonna eat it. I have some more kale here, and onions and garlic are abundant in this garden. So yeah, that's that's basically it. So it's a collection of sort of three gardens, like a hot food forest, an English garden at the front, and then a Mediterranean garden at the back. That's kind of the.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So, can you, in layman's terms, tell me what permaculture is?
Yes.
For my thick brain.
So permaculture stands originally for permanent agriculture, and now it stands for permanent culture. So it's got three ethics, which are earth care, people care, and fair share. So originally, Bill Mollison, the first founder, two co-founders, Bill Mollison and David Holgram. And Bill Mollison is dead now. David Holgram is like his protege, like a kind of Plato and Socrates situation. And Bill Mollison went all over the world and looked at indigenous people all over the world and tried to work out what made people live a long time, what made communities go over generations, types of food, things that they did in the garden, practices they used. And he noticed that when people grew in what he calls, or what you call in permaculture, like forest food gardening now, but it's not necessarily always forest food gardening. It's like looking at, because not all places are forests, right?
No.
It's looking at what your land would have originally been and then mimicking the pattern of that. So if your land would have originally been a meadow, if you left it to go absolutely wild and it would be a meadow, how do you replace the plants that would have been there with edible versions that do the same job? Does that make sense? So, for example, if I am looking in my garden and I see a bunch of nettles, I know I can replace those nettles with beans because they're both nitrogen fixers. So that's what they're doing for the soil. That's their job. That's what they're like kind of role in the ecosystem. So it's about taking apart like what the natural ecosystem is, that place you are, not you, not you, not you, you know, not some on the other side of the world. It's where you are in that moment, not my past garden in Croydon, you know, this garden now. What would it have been? And then what lessons can I learn from that? And how do I replicate that? That's what they call like biomimicry. How do I mimic that in an edible version? And so permaculture teaches you not how to grow the stuff, but how to think about the problem.
Right.
And it gives you the tools to look at the problem, to understand what you're looking at, and to design from there. It's all about design. It's less about growing. Like the growing just comes from experience, right? You don't get any better at gardening unless you do it.
No.
So, but the design element of it is still quite theoretical. And like you can fit a lot of stuff in a small space. Like I can fit 7 things in a pot because I'm designing it in those forest layers, the canopy, the lower canopy, the the herbaceous layer, the shrub layer, all of those things. Because I can design it in that layer, then I can fit things in a small place. But then when David Holgram came around, he said, well, it's not just about food. It's about more than that. He said it's about people culture and it's about economic systems as well. So that's where you get the earth care, people care, and fair share from. So the patterns that you learn from nature. So for example, individual communication is best done in a web pattern, but community communication is best done in a fungus pattern. Right? And when you see that play out on the earth, then you understand that in communities. So our abstract kind of like voting and governance systems should use those same biomimicry patterns. Sorry, I know it sounds really deep,
Wow.
but that's where it's at. And people now use the same principles of biomimicry for food, water, shelter, waste, energy, and community. So people like there's some people I know who are permaculturists who focus solely on water. So they're like plumbers, but so like off the grid houses and gardens, and they'll plumb your grey water and your black water and all of these things, and flow it through the garden in a cycle that's regenerative. Because the focus is on regeneration as opposed to sustainability. You're not trying to keep it the same. You're trying to make more.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of that focus. The idea like you can plant a seed and you'll get thousands of seeds from it. Or if you think about the problem wide enough and with enough imagination and information, you'll always end up with an answer that is bigger than what you started with. A solution that uses all of the waste from the problem to create a regenerative answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, like for example, okay, like in where I live now, on a Monday, the garden waste man comes along and collects all the garden waste, right? And people just throw that away. They just cut it out of their gardens and just throw it away. They just give it to the man.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it happen, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Because with that garden waste, I will take it and I will um, cut it all down really small, and then I'll run water through it so it creates a compost tea. And then once that compost tea is made, I'll strain it and I'll take that garden waste and I'll spread it on the garden. So I've got mulch and I've got a homemade fertilizer. So I'm regenerating from the very problem that I had to start with,
Oh,
right?
I
Like
see.
the
Right.
waste was
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
And now I've got like solutions to other problems in the system. So I've got a bigger system, and that what's seen as waste, we were saying there's no such thing as waste, just things in the wrong place, right? So you'll take what is the problem and you will create solutions to other parts of your system by thinking creatively about that problem.
Wow. So that what you just said about the garden waste is just one tiny thing. There must be hundreds.
Exactly, that's why I'm mad. That's how I'm mad, right? Because you, like you're saying, you'll have like one bit of wood left over from something, and you're like, I cannot throw this away. There
Yeah.
must be a thing.
I'm so like,
Absolutely, absolutely. Like any bit of water I see anywhere, I'm like, I must not use the hose. But like, I'll collect like I'll just leave buckets out everywhere. I like there's all and like even little things like in your household, there's so much waste that comes through. So I don't know if you saw I did a reel the other day where I take plastic bottles and I cut them in half or like three quarters, and then I sink them into the soil, and that collects rainwater, and it sinks the rainwater deep into the soil. So like for me, basically anything I look at something and I think, oh, this is waste or this is a problem, you're trying to reframe it as like, okay, where could this be a solution elsewhere in the system of sustainability or regeneration I'm trying to create?
Mm. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, another one is like, when it comes to potting season, right? And you've got all those strawberry punnets or like yogurt pots,
Yeah.
like they're gonna, I'm not going to the shop to buy pots. That would be insane,
Mm.
right? Like, here we are, we have them. And I think there's so many things in our lives that to me, the reason I think I got sucked into the permaculture rabbit hole was because it seems so obvious, seems so sensible. Like I'm throwing away all this stuff and then buying new stuff when all the problems I have can be solved by the things I already have.
It's actually blown my mind because I always thought up until this last 10 minutes, permaculture was some beans there, some broccoli there, some tomatoes next to it, just mixing things up in a bed. I didn't know anything about the rest of what you just said.
Yeah, I mean that's like it comes down. So that's like the principle of forest garden. That's like one of the. So when you start getting into the actual designs in the garden, there's like set designs people will use. So like a banana circle is one that people would use in the tropics. Or you might use it as like a canna lily circle here. So like what you're explaining is like the kind of companion planting food forest design that people would use. The raised and sunken beds I just showed you, that's like another design. Because when Bill Mollison wrote his design handbook, it's like this. Okay?
Wow.
It's literally a handbook of designs. And then when David Holgren wrote his handbook, it was a handbook of designs of how to build a house, like how to make a fridge that needs no electricity, how to use like passive energy within your house. And it was more focused on the wider perspective rather than just the garden. How to redesign your job so that 80% of your energy is put into your home instead of 80% being put outside. So it's like a much wider perspective. It's about like a permanent culture. And the garden is the classroom to show how those systems behave.
Yeah. I need to go on one. My God. I need to go on one of your courses, I think.
When I did that course, as I started to explain it, every lesson I started to explain, I thought, I'm in this cyclical system where I don't know where I started to learn and what I know and how you start from the basics to explain it.
Yeah.
You like, because I think some people are natural systems thinkers, and I think they get taken by that idea. The moment you start explaining it to people and you say, like, well, you know, most people just look at one process, but if you were to look at the whole landscape, and you start to look at like, oh, water is coming in from this side, and there's, you know, there's no water on this side of the garden, there is water on this side of the garden. It's not that you can't grow tomatoes, it's that you can't grow them there.
Yeah.
Right? Or you need to channel water from here to there, or you've got an abundance of this here, how do you make it there? And some people naturally, I think, take to that idea. I think they're also the people who struggle working in an organisation as well. They're the people who work for themselves.
Oh dear. It's so interesting, isn't it? I didn't have a clue. Did you know, Mark, or was you the same as me? The same, you know, think, oh, it's just dotting different plants around the garden.
Yeah, I didn't realise you could go as in depth as it literally changing your life, which is what it sounds like. The way Emmy's put it across, you can literally like reorganise your entire life based on permaculture, basically.
Yeah, well, you can't spell permaculture without cult. That's what we say.
Oh my God.
So we had a question saying, does this way of permaculture you speak of relating to food, can the same system be adapted to other forms of gardening? So,
as in like flower gardening?
Yeah, as in an ornamental flower garden, could that be a permaculture?
Absolutely.
Or is that?
Absolutely. No, it's about diversity. So you would have to think about, so for example, let me give you the quick rundown of how a food forest works, right? You have 7 layers in a food forest. So you have the canopy, the sub-canopy, the shrub layer, which is like woody plants, like a raspberry or something. And then you have a herbaceous layer, which is soft stems, like herbs or flowers. Then you have ground cover. Then you have rhizomes, so like your root vegetables or things like that.
Yeah.
And then you have climbers, right? So effectively, most forests aren't edible plants, right? Most forests are just plants.
Yeah.
So actually, in general, it's a lot more effort to do that, to create an edible garden, than it is just to create a garden, right? I could just, if I just left it, it would be like that, and they wouldn't be edible plants. If I was to try and do it with flowers, I think it would be a little more difficult, because there's also jobs that those things do. So there's things like that you call like dynamic accumulators. So a good flower example of this would be either borage or dandelion, and they have big tap roots, and they mine deep from the soil. And when they bring minerals up, and when they drop their leaves, they put the minerals on the surface of the soil. So you see those things when there's a lot of destruction in the soil, when things have been turned over and the soil is bare, because their job is to bring the minerals to the top of the soil. So like, yeah, you could be great with getting dynamic accumulators into your garden, but to try and get nitrogen fixers, which are usually beans and peas, nettles, lupins, I think would be a flower example. It's a little bit harder, but like you could definitely find them. There we go. Like lupins is one example. If you were doing it with flowers, because you kind of so you want pest control, pollinators. Pollinator attractors obviously is easy with flowers, and you don't need it too much with flowers. You need to macro too. Pest control being again, you throw out things companions, nitrogen fixers, dynamic accumulators, and anything that's a physical support. Again, you don't need that so much if you're not growing veg, right? If I'm growing like beans and peas and I want crop decline, then I need a physical support for that. But if I was like growing a clematis, I might want to grow a flower for the clematis to grow up.
Mm.
So it's about, for me, it's about the reason you grow in that design is because on one footprint, like one pot that I show you, I can grow 7 things in it. But if I was growing just an ornamental garden, I wouldn't worry so much about having those layers or growing in that specific design. I would just try to diversify as much as possible and use as many native things in between anything I brought in that wasn't native.
Wow.
Permaculture is definitely geared more towards permanent culture for humans, as in like trying to feed them or clothe them or shelter them, right?
Sorry, it's just amazing. I really need and want to look into this a lot deeper because it's absolutely blown my mind.
I'm going to send you, there's a link and I will put it, I don't know where we can put it, I don't know what you do, but there's a link
Put it
to
in the show notes.
David Holgren's book and it is free.
Right.
So you can buy a copy and I have a copy of it, like a hard copy. But he gives a digital copy for free. So I'll send you the link as well. I don't know where you can put that, maybe in the show notes or something like
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Look at me sounding like I'm on Joe Rogan.
I'll put the link in the show notes. So once I publish the podcast, I'll put a link in with the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's an amazing resource. It really like the fact that he gives it away for free is unbelievable. Like it really is a design manual for your life. It's crazy. Like it's got must have 50 different rainwater designs in it, all different things, and all the explanations of why they're important and how to execute them without it being expensive to your life, because that's the big thing, and time expensive as well as cost expensive, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I feel like the big thing with social media is people expect that what we do takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It does, but not time you're not willing to give.
Yeah. Just a couple of more minutes on permaculture, please. Go back to your pots. You know your pots with 7 things in?
Yeah.
So that is what you've just explained to us about the forest canopy, did you say? No, the canopy's at the top.
Yeah.
So going down to the things that the nitrogen fixers, the peas, beans, lentils, etc. You've got one pea plant in there.
Isn't that what one with the lentils? There's loads of lentils. I just plant them all and see what happens. Right? And when he says one pea plant, it's less than like if there's like one broad bean, that broad bean will capture nitrogen from the air and will put it in the soil. But it's also good as the broad bean dies off, I will chop and drop the leaves as they die off, and they will go on the soil and will break down and release nitrogen into the soil. So it's also the generation of the things. So like if I'm growing borage as a dynamic accumulator for the minerals,
right?
I don't just wait till it all dies back. I will chop and drop it so it keeps growing and use that as a resource for the soil as well, as much as it's a resource for being eaten.
So all I can think of is someone who wants a nice, posh, straight, flat garden. It's not going to be able to do it.
In fact, I was at my mum's house about a year ago, and her neighbour was saying to me, Oh, well, you know, my garden, it's not like yours because I like a really attractive looking garden. And then about 2 weeks later, I went round and everything was dead. And I was like, oh,
That's
hmm,
attractive.
that's attractive looking garden. She was like, well, it's been very dry, hasn't it? And I was like, yeah. Got any rainwater harvesting mechanism? No ground cover. What are you talking about? But yeah, um, for sure. Like, because I get this all the time. You know, like I'll be in, the local pub, and someone will be like, "I want to grow tomatoes, but I want a lawn, or I want it to look pretty." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, go talk to someone else. I don't know what you want from me. If I came to your house, I'd rip your lawn up." I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough one because for me, it feels like a waste of a resource in a world where resources are so scarce
Yeah.
to have a patio. Not to have a patio if you've got other space, but if you were like, when people turn their garden into a car
Yeah.
park, and you're like, why?
Yeah.
That I find pretty mad.
I can see, like in the third world, why they would have it, and because they have to. A lot of time they
Yeah.
have to, obviously, because they would have if they didn't use these systems. Is systems the right word? They probably wouldn't grow anything. They've evolved. They've made them, haven't they? They know what works for them.
Mm.
Well, they have to, otherwise they don't have food. Whereas we've got the luxury. If our stuff doesn't grow, we can go to the supermarket.
Exactly.
Whereas for them, it's like life or death, isn't it?
But you say this though, but the other day I filmed a story. I walked around the supermarket, there was no food on the shelves. None. Like, I mean, there's fake food on the other
Yeah, yeah.
shelves, but I mean, there was no like food on the shelves. And what I love about British people is when something terrible is happening, they just pretend it's not happening. So like I watched this guy walk up to the shelf where there was like pak choy and other like Chinese vegetables and being like, "Oh love, do we need some pak choy?" Like they buy it every week, you know. And there wasn't even one carrot. There was no potatoes, nothing, absolutely nothing. And when I go in that supermarket, I would say every time at least 40% of the vegetables are empty. At least 40% every time. And that's not because we've had a rush of vegetables. It's because our supply from like
Yeah.
Spain,
Yeah.
mostly from Spain, they're having cyclical cycles of drought one year, like flood and fire, which comes from monocropping, right,
Yeah.
over time, industrial agriculture, because industrial agriculture eats up all the nutrients in the soil, and then the water can't sink in. So it just, when it does rain, it floods and it just washes off, and then it's drought. So it's flood and drought. So every year they're either getting floods or they're getting droughts, and they can't grow any vegetables. And we're just pretending it's not happening, or saying it's Brexit. But it's not. There just isn't the vegetables there.
Brexit.
It's not Brexit. It's not. Everyone's starving.
Stir fried
Like,
tonight for tea because it's Brexit.
Brexit's, but it's really problematic, and people aren't recognizing that industrial agriculture at that level. It's as if it stole all the nutrients from tomorrow for the day, and like it boosted yields really quickly for like 10 years,
Yeah.
like just absolutely wrecked everything that was in the soil that now just pure desertification. And what I find interesting is when I did my permaculture course, I did it in this like yoga retreat in Spain. And I didn't pick the place, I picked the guy who did the course, right? And I knew he was in this course, so I went there and it was like in a bowl. And the reason he was asked to do it there was because every single year this yoga retreat used to run out of water and they used to have to truck in water. And a girl who had done a course with him before had done a yoga retreat there, and she was like, "I'm sure Doug can solve this problem." Shout out to Doug Couch. And he was like, "Yeah, I can solve it, no problem, easy." Right? And so he came in, and within 6 months at that time, it was completely dry in the middle of the bowl, and then up all the sides is like agricultural fields, and you could just see the desertification creeping up these fields. Farmers shaking their heads, absolutely, how are we going to carry on? And within 6 months, he had absolutely greened that, raised the water table, double the amount. They had no water shortage, and all of the farmers' fields were green again. within 6 months.
Unbelievable.
So it's not a resource problem and it's not a climate change problem. It's literally a design problem.
When were these books written then?
I think Bill Mollison wrote his in like the 70s, and it's really mad. It's like it's really intense because it's like a book written in the 70s where a man in the 70s just wrote what he's thinking
Yeah.
in 3 million pages. And then David Holmgren wrote Retro Suburbia. So it focuses on David Holmgren. What he said was, well, it's all right because Bill Mollison was like, if you had brand new land and you were building from scratch, this is what you would do. And David Holmgren was like, well, that's all right, but most people aren't doing that.
No.
Most people live in suburban houses that are already got fittings and fixtures and certain ways of being. So he designed a book that was how do we retrofit those things. Bearing in mind he's Australian, so a lot of what he says needs to be switched around, right? If it's north or south. But that was his view, was like, how do we take these existing properties and retrofit them to be regenerative? And his house is phenomenal if you ever see it. Absolutely amazing. Him and there's another guy called Seth Holzin, I think.
Don't worry, we won't hold you to it.
I know, but I feel like he will. Seth Holden, I think. One day he'll be like, you cannot come to my farm. He has this farm where I think it's in Switzerland, and if you look from above, it's just this like valley forest and just polycultures of food that wrap around this like natural build house, and all of it feeds into like it's completely off the grid, and every like element of the design feeds into making it regenerative. So one of the big design things in permaculture, stick with me because this is a bit intense, is in a system there's lots of purposes. So a purpose might be to water the garden. A purpose might be to get rid of waste, right? So that's a purpose. Purpose might be to grow food. And then there's lots of elements. And an element might be like an onion, or it might be like a rain barrel, right? So every element you put in your system should be multi-purposeful. So if you put an onion in it feeds you, it's pest control, it's a pollinator attractor, it's got multiple purposes. In doing that, it's really efficient.
Yeah.
Every purpose should be served by multiple elements. So if you're trying to collect rainwater, you should have different rainwater harvesting designs, a rain barrel. You should have rainwater harvesting on the roof, raised and sunken beds. Because it's served by multiple elements, it's now resilient. Because if one of them breaks, you still get rainwater. That's like the major system design is everything, every element should be multifunctional, every function should be served by multiple elements. And it creates a resilient and efficient system. And that is the same whether you're designing a factory, whether you're designing a community, or whether you're designing a vegetable patch.
Don't have all your eggs in one basket, basically.
Exactly. And have more things to eat than just eggs, just in case.
Oh my god, that's amazing, absolutely amazing.
It really is.
I knew tonight was going to be fantastic.
You know, when I did my permaculture course, at the end you have to take one like element from the design that you did as a group and explain why it's like multi-purposeful and why it's resilient, why it's efficient. And I did not understand the assignment. I absolutely took something and blew it up into like how you could make reinvent community governance. And my friend, she just talked about the chickens.
But you could have just spoke about the onion that you did a second ago.
Yeah, exactly. Totally misunderstood. Such a Hermione Granger move. But it really is a fascinating school of thought, I think is what you would call it. The guy who taught me, Doug Crouch, he actually has a website called Trio Permaculture. Terrible name, I tell him all the time. And on there is a simplified version of Bill Mollison's book. And he spent a lot of time with artists to try and visually represent what this guy's talking about, because it's a lot to do with pattern design that unless your head's really in that, or I don't know if you're taking mushrooms, like you kind of need to see it. And he works a lot with like an artist to help like represent what this guy was saying and to condense this huge book into because I think it's 12 chapters and he condenses it into like 12 articles that are really easy to understand. So like as resources go, I will send you a bunch of links because there's loads of free books online. Like even there's 3 volumes of rainwater harvesting manuals. As you can imagine, they were for a minute, but they're free. I've read them all. Just doing my rainwater harvesting course, obviously it's an hour, it's much quicker. But if you want to, like, I started to build a little library of these free books and designs and things like that, so I'll send you the link to it.
Lovely.
Because I think it's helpful for people to see it visually sometimes.
Yeah, mental, absolutely mental.
So if you've got a polytunnel full of tomatoes planted, how do you retro permaculture it without having to rip all the tomatoes out and start?
No,
yeah, there's a lot of people with that situation at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I would intercrop. So like in between, I would put. Have you heard of square foot gardening?
Yeah.
So like a similar idea, like in that square foot, you can fit loads of plants that do different jobs or take up different spaces, or they're in succession, right? They don't grow at the same time. So like for example, if I had tomatoes like that, I would put in loads of herbs around them firstly.
Yeah.
But I would put in leeks because leeks grow later than tomatoes, but they're a really good pest control mechanism in between.
Okay.
I put in marigolds. They're excellent for making tomatoes taste sweeter, and they're great. I mean, I don't know what. I've never grown in a polytunnel like that, so I don't know what your pest situation's like. But
not
marigolds
too bad.
Are really good.
Polytunnel.
Yeah, I can imagine not so bad. Marigolds are good for keeping like beetles and stuff like that away. There's something in the root that kills the nematodes that the beetles eat or something. I don't know the science, but that's what it is. But I would put in like now like dwarf beans or runner beans or something like that in between, as well as your like nitrogen fixer.
Yeah.
That's what I would focus most. But interestingly, how do they pollinate? If they're in a polytunnel, how do pollinators get in there?
They do get in.
Doors and windows. That's it.
Window.
Oh, okay. You know, I thought I was a teacher the whole time. I thought that was a really nice poster. The whole time I thought that was a picture. Yeah, so like things like marigolds or borage or nasturtiums they're all edible. They're all really good pest control mechanisms, but they're all really good for attracting pollinators to tomatoes as well. So they're the best companions. And then marjoram as a herb, I only learned this last year, but when you plant it next to anything Mediterranean, it makes it taste better. Always. Yeah, like considerably sweeter as well. I tried it. I put some next to some tomatoes, not the others, and it really does make a difference.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I just intercropping. Like I presume you got space, right? For me, if there's like a bit of spare space, something's going in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd put all herbs in there. For
So
sure.
what I usually do is interplant it with basil. I'd only put
basil as well.
Yeah, basil. The problem with basil, I find, is in England it doesn't overwinter like a tropical plant. Although the other day in my garden, I noticed something growing. Because one thing with permaculture is you grow in zones away from the house. Of like zone 1 is things you attend to every day. Zone 2 is things you attend to like a couple times a week, and so on. If you had a really big site, for example, if you had an orchard, that would be in zone 4. And zone 5 is always something that you keep wild, so you can learn from it. And I've got and even if you've got a small garden, you always keep a little zone 5. And this thing was growing, it looked like oregano, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I smelt it, but it smelled like basil. And it's called box basil or hedgerow basil, and it's native to England, and it's really hardy, and it's the same. It tastes the same as Italian basil, not quite so sweet, but it's like a native plant, and therefore like it attracts native pollinators, keeps like native pests away, but it will continue to grow year on year. It's like perennial. It's not like the basil that dies out each year.
Wow,
So if you
That's
can get
amazing.
hold
I
of
haven't known
Fox
that.
basil. No,
I
I'm gonna
bet
look
you,
that up.
I bet all of us have got loads in our garden we just didn't notice. I just happened to be looking at that thing in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that looks like oregano. I've never heard of it before. But I would definitely put in some beans in there. Beans will, they just feed the soil, right? They're just really good for feeding the soil. Um, and some sort of onion or something like that.
Chives would be
Something like
good,
that.
wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then just a bunch of flowers. Like flowers will really help with the pollination as well. I know you can shape their self-pollinating, but it's a little bit easier when you've got a lot more buzzy things around. Especially if you've got things that attract birds, I find with tomatoes, right? Because the birds will like sort of fuss inside the plant, and that shakes the
Yeah,
flowers.
right, tickling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But to be honest, like for me, it's all the gardening is all learning every time I'm doing it every year
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
the environment is different. Next year, the garden is different because it matures to what it was, like more than what it was now. You know, I get different pests the year after. I get different things to contend with. Like the first year, you like I always find with beginner gardeners, they give up because they get loads of slugs and snails. It's like, yeah, well, because there's nothing there before you started.
Yeah.
Whereas like over my last garden I did for 4 years, and by the end of it I had loads of birds. So I didn't have so many slugs and snails, hedgehogs, things like that, right? So they're eating the slugs and snails. You don't have so much of a problem, but that becomes mature in the garden over time.
Yeah. Have you nodded off, Mark?
No. Right.
Someone just asked, are there any plants that aid in assisting the existing soil microbes to multiply and remain healthy? I mean, all of them. I mean, like,
I suppose they all do it in different ways, don't they?
yeah, like the way I would. Do you mulch in your garden? Are you mulchers?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way of doing it is like having diverse plants and then mulching their leaves because that creates like a biodiverse microbiome in that soil, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's any specific plants that help soil microbes so much. I would just say it's the biodiversity you create, right?
So we just mentioned slugs and snails. Any tricks or hints for the rest of the world this
You don't
year?
even say my Brussels sprouts. I actually do have a trick in hint, which I don't follow myself, but I did before I moved here. I moved quite suddenly, so I had a lot of different things before. So this is going to be really geeky, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So mollusks are copper-based blood. Okay, so they navigate by the magnetic patterns of the earth, which means they're naturally drawn to steel. So when you plant your new seedlings, you use a steel trowel, right? And you disrupt the soil with a steel trowel. And normally you dig all the way around, right? And then you pop it in there. So you've created a nice little ring of steel like that. And it will attract the mollusks to it because they can smell that steel. They see it as a navigational tool. And then they're just like, it's not like they can smell a Brussels sprout and they're like, oh, Brussels. It's that they're attracted to the steel. And then they're like, oh, look, a buffet. So actually, if you use copper tools, when you plant with copper tools,
Yeah.
you get far fewer. That's like the one trick. The other thing is definitely polyculture, right? Like as you see out the front, I had planted too many brassicas together in a wetter environment, whereas at the back, I've got much more diversity in the
Yeah.
plants. So a slug might hit one, and then just feast on that one and goes away because the next one it doesn't like. So it doesn't realize it. It's not if you're growing all the same thing in a row, it's like great. This is my favourite food, all in one place. Another trick that works really well, but you have to keep an eye on it on rainy days, is trap crops. Trap crops, I think, work the best. So when I'm growing raisins and sunken beds, like on the edges of the beds, I'll plant radishes, and they
Right.
will, but knowing that I'm not going to eat them, they
Okay.
will always go to radishes first. So you will find them on the radishes, and then you can pick them up and chuck them away.
So grow something that they love to eat and then go and find them on that.
Yeah, like slightly, just like not too far away that it's not near the thing that you're trying to grow. But like, say you're trying to grow a Brussels sprout, I would grow them like a foot away. I would put radishes, and they'll go there first. Flood pubs are always great. Like a lot of shit on social media for that. That's probably the most controversial video I've ever posted. People are like, oh, killing the slugs just for your vegetables. Like, all right, says the person going to the supermarket. Go eat your microwave meal and leave me alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what that is, it's just like a little bit of beer in the bottom of a jar. You sink into the soil, and they were attracted to that, and they go in there. People put like copper around the beds,
Yeah.
right? Like copper wire around the beds or coins around the beds. That works well. Eggshells on the soil works well as well as like a physical barrier. Mulch is pretty good, but it's hit and miss for me with mulch, because I feel like sometimes it's a slug haven.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's a nice bedding for them.
Because if it's doing its job and holding the
It's
moisture,
all
they love
moist. Yeah, they love it in there. So it's like swings and roundabouts, that one. But yeah, I think they're the best. I mean, birds attract birds. Like that's attract their predator is always the big thing. I think the real answer is to get Indian running ducks.
I'd love them.
I would love them. Love them. But my contract in this rental place says I can't do a lot of things on the premises, and then it says I can't have pets in the premises, and I'm like, does that mean I can have ducks on the premises? I feel like it does.
Yeah, Joe said frogs. Obviously, frogs. If you got a little water source as
Well,
well,
yeah,
little pond, frogs will off slugs
that's a
all
good point
day.
actually. I've got a pond out here, and the slugs don't get stuff out the back here. That must be the frogs out here doing their job
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
definitely think as you see it mature over time, and you see more birds, and you see more frogs, and you see more hedgehogs and things like that. Obviously, people who are abroad don't have hedgehogs so much. You see fewer, not you see fewer slugs. They're less invasive in the sense that they're the only thing in the garden.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
one really good one I have, which is specific for strawberries. If you're growing strawberries, I take like a yogurt pot or a bit of a plastic bottle, and I like cut it into a tube all the way around. Then I cut a slit in it, and I sort of fit it around the strawberry like a collar, and then all the leaves and the strawberries hang over the top of the tube, and they don't touch the soil then, and the slugs never get them.
So they hang
That's a really good thing.
like from the top.
Yeah, they hang over the top. Exactly. It makes it a little bit harder because they don't run so well. That's the only thing. It stops them running.
Yeah.
They tend to like grow up bushy. But yeah, like that really does. I mean, when I did that last year with all my strawberry plants, I probably had like 2 strawberries taken by slugs. It was really effective.
Because
But in general, I think plant loads of shit.
everybody
So
says that you should net your strawberries, and I often find that it's the slugs that strawberries more than the birds. So I never bother netting it, because I think if the birds come along, they might take some of the slugs away.
Exactly. That's why I don't net anything, is because I think it's like one thing or the other, isn't it? It's like a toss up of whether you try and protect it from one thing or not the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about your
very true.
brassicas then? You're not going to net any brassicas at all?
I never have.
You have?
I should have done. Did the slugs can get through those nets?
Every single brassica I put in, the pigeons have. Same as
What the pigeons have?
Pigeons.
I didn't know it was a thing.
Pigeons eat my brassicas. Yeah, love them.
Pigeons love brassicas.
Brassicas, peas. I've now sown peas twice this year already, and they're just decimating within.
The squirrels got all my peas last time. Dug them all up. So I haven't really got any peas this year because they dug them all.
So within the pigeons and the bloody slugs and snails, it's just horrendous this year.
A couple of years ago, I grew some Brussels sprouts and they were just ripening. Right, it was the first time I'd ever grown Brussels, and I was so proud of them. And I went out to work and I came home, and my housemate at the time, when I came home, I was like, ran in. I was like, oh my God, what happened to all my Brussels sprouts? Like every single last one of them. And he said to me, well, the thing is, I was sat in the garden and I watched a fox come down and delicately eat every single Brussels sprout off the stalk. And I was like, why didn't you stop it? And he was like, because it was too amazing. Too amazing to watch. And he just, like, one at a time.
No, nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
That's real urban gardening.
Saying that, my dog, my fox red Labrador, she goes in the greenhouse and plucks tomatoes, individual, just pop, pop, so gentle, just pulls them off.
That's what I mean. He said that was so gentle.
Leaves the calyx on, just pops them off. It's unbelievable.
I mean, in all fairness, my son does the same. Mine, green, he'll have them. Anything that's grown, he'll have it.
Oh, definitely.
He eats he picks the green, like, chivy bits off the onions, and we'll be like, I'm like, stop picking the onions out the garden and eating them.
Oh, bloody, absolutely amazing. Emmy, I've absolutely loved this chat we've had.
Oh God, I'm being attacked by a pigeon right now.
Oh, yeah, see? Talking about them.
Don't give me them brassicas.
Say brassicas.
Oh. Right, Mark's got a few questions for you.
Okay.
Lightning round. So, spring or summer?
Summer.
Seed sowing or potting on?
Potting on.
So many people say potting on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What's your go-to emoji?
The squid one.
Squid.
This is so silly.
Squid.
Yeah, it's so good. Whenever you don't know what to say, you're like,
Try that. Complete the sentence. My perfect day would be
in the garden, obviously. My perfect day would be in the garden with a couple beers.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
Yes.
Permaculture or monoculture? Just try to catch you out. Forest or beach?
Forest. Yeah, forest. Beaches.
Cat or dog?
Dog. I feel bad for saying that.
Today's favourite plant?
Oh, a feverfew. I grew loads of feverfews are coming through, and they're beautifully.
I got loads coming through again in mine.
And I just love anything that, like, I didn't grow. That was just like, oh, I want to join in.
Flowers or veg?
Veg.
If you could only have one snack for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh God. Oh God.
It would probably be just like Marmite straight out the jar. Like, don't get it. My son does the same now.
What was the answer to that last one? I didn't hear. I had two ginger dogs run at me.
I said it would probably be Marmite straight out the jar.
Oh yes, brilliant. Or maybe half Marmite, half peanut butter. Ooh.
No, what?
Marmite peanut butter sandwich or on toast. Amazing.
I will leave you with this. When I first moved in here, 'cause it's a cottage, right? There was mice. There's always mice. And what I love about living in this little row of cottages, quite famous here, and the gardens are very famous, is that everyone understands their cottages, so they work together to make sure that they function well.
Yeah.
And there's mice problems every year, right? And my son saw me one time, put peanut butter on a mousetrap. Now it's about 8 months later, and every morning I'll say, "What do you want on your toast?" And he says, "Mousetrap."
Mousetrap.
Mousetrap for toast.
Oh dear. Oh, thanks ever so much. It's been amazing.
Very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
You've probably changed quite a few people's lives.
So you can.
let me just hold on. We're just talking about dogs. Moss, look, come here. He's just pulled that out of the garden.
Carrot.
That's the first carrot.
No.
My first.
Oh no, your first.
God.
Carrot. I'm terrible at growing carrots as well. I'd be devastated.
Oh,
if you
dear
took my carrot.
me. He's pulled my carrot out. I don't know. Oh dear. All right, lovely. Thanks ever
Thank
so much.
you so much for having me.
It's been amazing, and speak to you soon.
Thank
See
you.
you later, guys.
Emmy, see you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bloody hell, that is. Oh my god, that is just so massive, isn't it? I honestly thought permaculture was just mix a few plants into each other.
Yeah.
Good God.
I wonder if it can solve my garden flooding.
Wow, maybe worth
Probably
having a chat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm definitely going to permaculture my polytunnel.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we do already, like you said, and I think it was probably 2 years ago. I started doing the basil, like you said, 2 years ago. But why not stick some chives in there as well, and some dwarf beans? By the time the dwarf beans or peas get up, the tomatoes they're growing up anyway.
I've got a snake bean. Does that count?
It's not dwarf.
It's taller than the tomatoes.
Yeah, look, Emmy said I can definitely solve your garden flooding. Look at that.
Is it?
Brilliant. Fantastic. Snake bean. Snake bean. Talking about borage, look at this bloody borage I had. So I put a couple of plants in last year. Look at it this year.
Borage bed.
Look at it. All completely self-seeded. I didn't put nothing in there at all.
You've got a borage monoculture going on there.
I know. I need to chop some down and spread it around a bit. Ridiculous. Ah, enjoyed that. And I was going to say to you, saw your reel earlier in the greenhouse. You were watering your tomatoes from the top.
Yeah.
I thought that was a big no-no.
I've always done. Well, to be fair, when they get taller, I do it from the bottom, but it's hard to get underneath at the moment.
I just take the
Rows off.
rows off, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And just plug it on.
I was me trying to record whilst watering.
All my leeks from last year going to seed.
It looks so great though. I love the flowers. Yeah. They look like there's an allium variety called Summer Drummer, which pretty much looks exactly like a leek flower. Bee.
Little bumblebee.
Nice to see them.
Yeah.
Lots of rows. I can never find them.
I think things are picking up in the garden now, but it's definitely a lot slower than last year.
Well, we've got some heat at last, which is helping.
Yeah, definitely.
So my tiny little squash that I was showing off last week.
Yeah. Oh. So frustrating, isn't it? It's so frustrating. I hate it.
2 left out of 10.
I just hate it. Every day I put something else new in and it's bloody munch. Oh, where are these ones? These have all been nibbled. They got to this big and then Yeah.
Look
But
at
they're
that.
quite big, and they've been. Oh,
That's the thing. It doesn't matter what stage you get to put it out. They just seem to just have it. If they want it, they're having it.
charred. I don't even know they look bloody charred.
Well, Chris potted on a load of what's it called? Can't remember the name of it. It's a flower.
Yeah.
But he potted on a load on Friday, and when I came in on Monday, bar one, every single one was gone. They just had probably 20 plants over the weekend.
So
Zinnias
frustrating.
just had a lot.
I forgot to say, but I was going to say to Emmy what she thinks about nematodes, and I've really, really been thinking about shall I, shan't I? It just feels like you're just doing it, planting stuff for no reason. What works to kill them? Oof. Nematodes apparently, but nematodes kill the good ones and the bad ones, don't they?
I guess bear traps. She said about bear traps.
Bear traps, yeah. Leanne, you've got them as well. Everybody's got them. It's just horrendous. Surely now it's drying out a bit. They shouldn't be so prolific.
Well, you wouldn't think they'd be, in this polytunnel, it must have been nearly 40 degrees today.
Yeah.
You think that if there were slugs anywhere in here, they'd bake.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to.
I don't know. Bloody things.
Have you got any tomatoes yet?
Only little the ones that Catherine and I sowed at the same time. The little
The micro tomatoes.
micro things, yeah. But my tomatoes are a bit behind. Everything's a bit behind, to be honest. Mainly because I didn't get it out in time. Ta-da!
Name the variety.
Well, let me have a look in about 3 weeks, and I'll tell you.
Hang on, let me get it. You might be able to get it.
Can't see it yet. I don't know.
That one's a bit better.
Oh, is that crushed heart?
Hey, well done.
Love crushed heart.
Go to every year.
They were amazing.
They are one of the nicest.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. They really are. Oh, Teresa just put the horses out. Even the horses come in the daytime now because it's so hot outside. They just get bitten and eaten by horse flies. Everything's a pain in the backside. Don't moan now. We can't moan.
Oh, my apple tree died.
Oh, just.
It flowered really well and then it just died.
Oh dear.
The graft failed because of the being underwater all winter.
Yeah.
Killed it.
But to the lifeboat just said my old lady puts talcum powder around the plants.
Okay.
Oh.
That'd dry them out, I guess.
What is talcum powder there? It's a bit chemically, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you put it on yourself. Does that make it good?
I don't. I can't remember the last time
No.
I put talcum powder on myself. Probably when I was about 6 months old and it was round my backside.
Yeah, do they still... Is talcum powder still a thing?
I don't know. Just going to go talcum. Oh, dear.
Little white circles around your plants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can get in trouble for that. So, Monday, Mark, we're going to, what's it called?
Hampton Court.
Hampton Court.
Although I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing, so...
Oh, you got to come. We'll have a chat, see how we can get there.
Did you want to talk about what you posted earlier, or is that?
Oh, it's just my post about my £1,000 fine for driving out of London.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrendous. Can't believe it.
Horrendous. Go over to Jamie's post and comment on it. Tell him how you think about it.
I put a reel up earlier, just having a moan about I've been fined £1,000 for driving out of a low emission zone when the vehicle I bought was already in it, and I didn't know. Yeah, gutted. And it looks like there's lots of people saying you're basically going to have to pay it, but I'll wait till the last day, and I might even take loads of pennies to wherever I got to pay. How many is 1,000? What's that? 10,000 pennies?
Would it be more than that, or would it be 100?
God knows.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you've got. If you're going to fight it, you've got to be prepared to end up paying £3,000, haven't you? So you've got to do that sum in your head.
Yeah.
If £1,000 bad enough is £3,000.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I'll just wait and see. I'll get as close as possible, and if it's looking like it's not going to go, I'll have to pay it. I've got no choice, have you? But that's why I've done that reel today, to see if I've tagged in lots of different people.
Yeah.
You know, Transport for London, the main ones.
Yeah.
The Mayor of London. We'll just get it out there and see what people say. No. Fingers crossed. I thought we'd had it. I thought, because they haven't replied for a month, and I thought, oh, they've took all my evidence and what I've said last time. I'm going to let him off, but nope, definitely not.
No, I was going to ask you about it because I was thinking about it the other day because you said about it on here, and you hadn't really mentioned it again. So
no, I think it was probably 3 days ago. We were saying between ourselves, oh, hopefully they've just let it drop, and they don't tell you. They just don't bother with it. But no. Letter dropped on the mat this morning. Never mind. Just so I'm clear, you can only drive low emission cars in certain areas and not in others. Yes, that's central in London. And I think there's some other cities now as well. But we got a train into London, bought a motorhome and drove it out, but I didn't know where it was parked at the old owners was inside the low emission zone.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see. Right, after all that permaculture talk, I've got to water my garden. Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't do it straight away.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Oh dear. All right, mate. I'm going to go.
Thanks
everyone.
See you
we'll
next
see
week.
You next week. Cheers, bud. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Through the Garden Gate.